The golden light of dawn was just breaking over the Serengeti when I spotted it through my telephoto lens, a ghostly figure moving unsteadily through the tall grass. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. What appeared to be a lion with two heads resolved, upon closer inspection, into something far more disturbing, an emaciated white lion with a large plastic container stuck firmly over its head. My name is Dr. Michael Collins, a wildlife veterinarian with the International Conservation Foundation. For the past 15 years, I've worked throughout East Africa's national parks, but nothing in my experience had prepared me for this sight. White lions are incredibly rare. Not albinos, but leucistic animals carrying a recessive gene that results in their pale coloration. With fewer than 20 documented in the wild, each individual represents an irreplaceable conservation treasure. "Sarah, contact base camp immediately," I said to my field assistant, keeping my voice steady despite my alarm. "We have an emergency situation approximately 3 kilometers east of our position." Sarah, an experienced Kenyan biologist who had been working with our team for 5 years, was already reaching for the satellite radio. "What is it?" she asked, her eyes following my gaze across the savannah. "A white lion with what looks like a large plastic container stuck on its head," I replied, adjusting my binoculars for a better view. "From its condition, I'd estimate it's been unable to eat or drink for at least 4 or 5 days. Through my binoculars, I could see the animal's protruding ribs and hip bones, its once powerful frame now frighteningly thin. The lion moved with the staggering gait of extreme exhaustion, occasionally pawing weakly at the plastic container that completely encased its head. Within minutes, we had loaded our emergency field kit into our research vehicle and were carefully navigating toward the struggling lion, maintaining radio contact with the park's main conservation team. While conservation ethics typically favor minimal intervention in natural processes, this situation clearly warranted immediate action. Human waste had created this life-threatening predicament, and only human intervention could resolve it. As we approached, maintaining a cautious distance, I could better assess the situation. The container appeared to be a large industrial food bucket, likely discarded near the park boundary by one of the safari lodges or nearby settlements. The lion, a young male perhaps 3 or 4 years old, had somehow forced his head inside, probably attracted by food residue, and now the container's rigid plastic rim was wedged behind his jaw and ears, impossible for him to dislodge with his paws. "His condition is critical," I observed, noting the animal's severely dehydrated state through my binoculars. "Look at his gait. He's struggling to maintain his balance. How long could he survive like this?" Sarah asked, her voice reflecting the gravity of the situation. "It's remarkable he's still alive at all," I replied honestly. "Most predators wouldn't last more than 3 days without water in this heat." The lion suddenly paused, his head turning blindly in our direction. Despite his inability to see, his acute hearing and sense of smell had detected our presence. Even in his weakened state, the instinctive wariness of a wild predator remained intact. Within 30 minutes, the park's emergency response team had arrived. Dr. Amina Kenyatta, the head veterinarian for the Eastern Serengeti region, 2 additional wildlife officers, and Chief Warden Joseph McCory, who had overall responsibility for this section of the national park. After a brief assessment from a safe distance, Dr. Kenyatta confirmed my initial evaluation. "This is Kimber," she explained, using the name researchers had given this particular white lion when they first identified him 2 years earlier. "He's one of only 4 white lions documented in this region of the Serengeti. Our research team last recorded him 3 weeks ago in excellent condition." "The container looks like it's from one of the tourist facilities," Warden McCory noted, his expression grim. "We've had increasing problems with improper waste disposal around the park periphery." The rescue operation we now faced was both urgent and dangerous. Even a weakened lion remains one of Africa's most powerful predators, and Kimber's inability to see would likely make him more unpredictable, operating purely on instinct and fear. "We'll need to tranquilize him," Dr. Kenyatta said, already preparing the darting equipment with a precisely calculated dose of sedative. "Then work quickly to remove the container before the drug wears off." "If we can get close enough for an accurate shot," I cautioned. "He can't see us, but his other senses will be heightened by his predicament. Our first approach proved the accuracy of my concern. Despite his weakened state, Kimber detected our presence and retreated into denser vegetation, the plastic container knocking against his chest as he fled. We tracked him carefully for nearly an hour before locating him again, now collapsed in the shade of an acacia tree, his strength clearly failing. "This may be our only opportunity," Warden McCory said quietly. "He doesn't have the energy to flee again." With the team positioned strategically around the tree, Dr. Kenyatta approached from downwind, tranquilizer rifle ready. Despite our caution, Kimber sensed her approach and struggled to rise, a muffled growl emanating from within the plastic container, a sound that sent an instinctual chill down my spine despite my years of experience with big cats. At 25 meters, the effective range of the dart gun, Dr. Kenyatta took careful aim and fired. The dart found its mark in Kimber's hindquarters. The lion flinched, then spun in confusion, trying to locate this new source of pain. For 12 tense minutes, we watched from a safe distance as the sedative gradually took effect. Finally, the magnificent cat's legs buckled, and he collapsed onto his side, his breathing steady but his body still. We moved in quickly, medical equipment and cutting tools in hand. Up close, Kimber's condition was even more alarming than I had initially assessed. The plastic container, a 20-liter cooking oil bucket from a safari camp, had created a tight seal around his neck. The rigid rim had cut into his skin in several places, creating wounds that had become infected in the dusty heat. His normally immaculate white coat was matted with dirt and bodily fluids, evidence of his desperate attempts to free himself. "Severe dehydration," confirmed Dr. Kenyatta, checking Kimber's vital signs. "And temperature elevated due to infection and dehydration. Heart rate rapid but weak. We need to remove this container immediately and begin treatment." Removing the bucket proved more challenging than anticipated. The hard plastic had warped from sun exposure and Kimber's attempts to free himself. We couldn't simply pull it off without risking further injury to his neck and face. "We'll need to cut it," I determined, retrieving specialized cutting tools from our emergency kit. "Sarah, help stabilize his head. Officer Mangy, prepare the 4 fluids and antibiotics for immediate administration once we get this off." Working carefully but quickly, we began cutting through the thick plastic, stopping frequently to ensure we weren't causing additional harm. After approximately 15 minutes of precise work, the container finally split enough for us to gently work it free from the lion's head. What we saw beneath was deeply distressing. Kimber's face was raw and irritated, with cuts around his ears and jaw where the plastic had rubbed against his skin during his desperate attempts to free himself. His eyes, once freed, were clouded with infection and extreme dehydration. "Start the 4 fluids immediately," Dr. Kenyatta instructed as we began treating the wounds and administering the broad-spectrum antibiotics. "These infections need immediate attention." As we worked to save this magnificent animal, I couldn't help reflecting on the painful irony. White lions hold profound cultural significance in many African traditions, considered sacred animals, symbols of light and leadership. Yet here was this majestic creature brought to the edge of death by something as mundane and preventable as carelessly discarded human waste. With the initial emergency treatment complete, we could only wait for the sedative to wear off while monitoring Kimber's vital signs closely. The question weighing on all our minds was whether we had found him in time. After approximately 5 days without food or water, with infections spreading throughout his system, would this rare and beautiful animal recover? Or had human negligence claimed another victim from Africa's increasingly vulnerable wildlife? As the African sun began its descent, Kimber showed the first signs of emerging from sedation. His massive paws twitched slightly, and occasional low groans escaped his throat. We had established a temporary field station around him, with monitoring equipment tracking his vital signs while intravenous fluids continued addressing his severe dehydration. "His temperature still elevated," Sarah noted, checking the digital readout. "Up by 3.8 degrees Fahrenheit. The antibiotics will need time to take effect," I replied, preparing another dose of medication. "My primary concern now is potential kidney damage. 5 days without water could have caused permanent harm." Warden McCory returned from coordinating with park headquarters via satellite radio, his expression serious. The conservation director wants updates every 2 hours. This situation is gaining attention. Someone posted images to social media, and several international wildlife organizations are already demanding investigations into waste management around the park. Officer Mangy nodded grimly. Perhaps now the authorities will take our warnings seriously. We've been reporting improper waste disposal for years. I understood their frustration but remained focused on our patient. Kimber was now fully conscious, though visibly weak and disoriented. His eyes, treated with antibiotic ointment, blinked slowly as he attempted to process his surroundings. When he tried to stand, his legs gave way beneath him. Unlike captive animals habituated to human presence, wild lions have no reason to trust humans. Indeed, they have evolved specifically to avoid close human contact. Despite his weakened state, Kimber remained a formidable predator with intact survival instincts. His confusion and fear made him potentially dangerous, even to those trying to save him. We should try to get nutrients into him, Dr. Kenyatta suggested, reviewing the latest blood work. His glucose levels are dangerously low. Agreed. But he won't accept hand feeding, I pointed out. Instead, let's prepare meat supplemented with electrolytes and nutrients. If he smells food, his hunting instincts might temporarily override his wariness. We prepared fresh antelope meat enhanced with a specialized wildlife recovery formula, a carefully balanced blend of vitamins, minerals, and proteins developed for carnivores in crisis situations. We placed this near Kimber, then retreated to observe from a safe distance. For nearly an hour, the lion ignored the offering, his eyes tracking our movements with cautious attention. Finally, hunger overcame wariness. He dragged himself toward the meat and began eating weakly, his once powerful jaws working with obvious effort. A positive sign, Sarah whispered. His survival instincts remain intact. A small victory, but significant, I agreed. If he's eating voluntarily, his prognosis improves substantially. Throughout that first night, we monitored Kimber in shifts. His condition remained precarious. The infections around his neck and face responded slowly to treatment, and his weakness was profound. Twice he vomited the food he had consumed, his digestive system struggling after days without nourishment. By morning, we faced a difficult decision. Standard conservation protocols limited field interventions to 24 hours. Wildlife either recovered sufficiently for release or was transported to permanent rehabilitation facilities if release seemed unlikely. Moving Kimber in his condition, however, carried significant risks. He won't survive transport to the nearest wildlife center, Dr. Kenyatta stated during our morning assessment. It's a 5-hour journey over rough terrain. The stress could be fatal in his weakened state. But we can't maintain a field hospital indefinitely, countered Warden McCory, though I could see he was conflicted. We have limited resources, and the longer he remains in an artificial environment, the more challenging reintegration becomes. After reviewing the latest blood work, I advocated for an exception to standard protocol. His creatinine levels indicate kidney stress but not failure. The antibiotics are beginning to work. I believe we should request a 72-hour extension for field treatment before making transport decisions. Following consultation with park authorities, we received approval to extend our field treatment period. The exceptional circumstances involving a critically rare white lion and clear human-caused distress justified deviation from standard procedure. With this additional time granted, we established a more comprehensive treatment regimen: small, frequent feedings of specially prepared meat, regular administration of antibiotics and anti-inflammatories, careful cleaning of the wounds around his neck and face, and, critically, minimal human interaction to preserve his wild instincts. On the second day, Kimber showed subtle but encouraging signs of improvement. He managed to stand briefly, though his movements remained unsteady. His eyes appeared clearer as the infection responded to treatment. Most promising was his increased appetite. He began consuming the medicated meat with greater enthusiasm, and his system started retaining the nutrition. His blood work is trending positively, Sarah confirmed that evening. Still concerning, but definitely improving. As we monitored Kimber's gradual recovery, news of his rescue spread rapidly through conservation networks and beyond. The image of the emaciated white lion with a plastic container stuck on his head became a powerful symbol of human impact on wildlife. Donations flowed into the park's conservation fund, and local authorities launched investigations into improper waste disposal around protected areas. On the third day, I arrived at our field station to find an unexpected visitor, Jabari, an elder from one of the nearby Maasai communities, accompanied by Officer Manji. The elder requested to see the white lion, Manji explained. They've been discussing the situation in their community council. Jabari, a dignified man in his 70s with extensive knowledge of local wildlife, observed Kimber with solemn attention. In our traditions, the white lion is a sacred animal, he said after a thoughtful silence. They appear in times of great significance, when messages must be delivered. What message do you think this one brings? I asked, genuinely interested in his perspective. Jabari gestured toward the healing wounds visible on Kimber's neck. That what we discard without thought returns to harm what we should protect. My village will help prevent this from happening again. By the fourth day, we confronted another critical decision. Kimber's improvement, while remarkable, remained fragile. He could stand and walk short distances but lacked the strength for sustained movement or hunting. Was he ready to return to the wild? Or would releasing him prematurely condemn him to death? There might be a third approach, I suggested during our team meeting. A soft release with monitoring. We create a temporary enclosure within his territory. Provide supplemental food while he continues recovering, gradually reducing it as he regains strength. Track his progress with a lightweight GPS collar. Give him the opportunity to rehabilitate in a semi-wild setting before complete release. The proposal was unorthodox but addressed both biological and ethical considerations. After consultation with wildlife management experts, the park director approved a modified version of the plan. We would construct a temporary 1-acre enclosure in Kimber's territory with natural features and minimal human presence where he could continue recovering before full release. The enclosure was completed in just under 2 days, a testament to the dedication of the park rangers and local volunteers who worked tirelessly. Situated in a secluded valley, the space included a small watering hole, patches of shade-giving acacia trees, and enough room for limited movement. Cameras with infrared capability were discreetly positioned to allow 24-hour monitoring with minimal human presence. Transferring Kimber presented its own challenges. We needed to sedate him again, always a risk with an animal in compromised health, but used the lowest effective dose possible. The journey to the new enclosure took just under an hour. Upon arrival, we settled him in a shaded area and administered the reversal agent for the sedative. Before leaving the enclosure, I attached a lightweight GPS collar to track his movement, body temperature, and basic activity levels. For the first 24 hours, Kimber remained largely inactive, recovering from the sedation and adjusting to his new surroundings. He drank from the watering hole but showed little interest in the fresh impala meat we had left for him. Through the monitoring system, we observed him moving stiffly around the perimeter, perhaps testing the boundaries of his new space. On the second day, a promising development occurred. The cameras captured Kimber attempting to stalk a small herd of guinea fowl that had wandered into the enclosure. His movements were clumsy, lacking the precision and power that would normally characterize a lion's hunt, but the instinct was clearly intact. Though unsuccessful, the birds easily fluttered away. This behavior suggested his predatory drive remained strong despite his ordeal. By the 5th day in the new enclosure, Kimber's improvement accelerated. The supplemental food we provided, reduced now to encourage natural hunting, was consumed promptly. His coat regained some of its luster, the distinctive pale fur beginning to look less dull and matted. Most significantly, his movement patterns changed. The GPS data showed increased activity, particularly during dawn and dusk hours, typical of lion hunting behavior. On the 10th day, we faced an unexpected challenge. The monitoring cameras showed Kimber pacing restlessly, his attention focused on something beyond the enclosure's boundaries. When Sarah and I arrived to investigate, we discovered the source of his agitation. A small pride of lions had established a position approximately 100 meters from the enclosure. 2 females and a dominant male, Sarah observed through binoculars. They're assessing whether he's a threat or potential coalition partner. This development complicated our rehabilitation plan. While Kimber was showing remarkable improvement, he wasn't yet strong enough to defend himself against a hostile pride. That night, Kimber took matters into his own paws. The morning patrol discovered a section of the enclosure fence damaged and bent outward. The GPS tracker showed Kimber had moved approximately 2 miles east, away from the territorial pride and deeper into the conservation area. He self-released, Sarah said, a note of admiration in her voice as we examined the damaged fencing. Made his own decision. For the next 3 days, we followed Kimber's progress through the GPS collar, careful to remain far enough away that our presence wouldn't influence his behavior. His movement patterns showed encouraging signs: deliberate travel during cooler hours, appropriate rest periods, and what appeared to be hunting circuits. On the 4th day after his self-release, the GPS showed Kimber had remained stationary for nearly 18 hours, concerning behavior that prompted us to investigate. Using telephoto lenses from a safe distance, we located him resting beneath a cluster of trees. Nearby lay the remains of a Thompson's gazelle, Kimber's first confirmed kill since his ordeal began. 6 months after I had first spotted that desperate figure with a bucket on his head, I stood on a ridge overlooking the savannah, tracking Kimber's signal one final time. The decision had been made to remove his collar, allowing him to live fully wild again. Through my binoculars, I could see him in the distance, his white coat luminous in the late afternoon sun, moving with the confident gait of a healthy predator. Did you ever imagine this outcome when you first saw him? Dr. Kenyatta asked, joining me on the ridge. I shook my head, recalling the desperate, starving creature I'd encountered months ago. Honestly, no. I thought we were documenting a tragedy, not a miracle. As the sun set over the Serengeti, somewhere in the gathering darkness, a rare white lion roamed free. No longer trapped, no longer starving, but forever a reminder of our responsibility to the natural world we share.